Welcome back. Day 7, I think. Day 7 of Backyard Ceramics. So yesterday we fired the kiln for about 5 hours, I think, and it did not reach cone 06. Now, by the way, I wanted to explain the cones a little bit better because I don't think I did a very good job of that. So pyrometric cones, you remember I had this cone pack. Pyrometric cones, maybe I should put this up here. There we go. Are formulated out of different ceramic materials, and they're made to melt at very specific temperatures. And they're numbered. So each one of these has a tiny little number imprinted on it. So these are 06. So if I can open this box, see if we can even see this. There's a tiny little focus. Well, come on. Well, this is a waste of time. All right, you'll have to take my word for it. There's a tiny little 06 stamp on the side. And these are 04. Now, the confusing thing is when there's a 0 in front of the number, it kind of works like a negative number. So 06 isn't as hot as 04. So it would go 06, 05, 04, 03, 02, 01, 1. There's no cone 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So a lot of people get in trouble when they confuse 06 for cone 6, because 06 is way less hot than cone 6. Now, it's not just the heat, it's not just the temperature, it's what's called heat work. And that means that if I slowly come up to a specific temperature and hold it at that temperature longer, that will do the same amount of heat work as if I jumped up to that temperature or jumped up to a higher temperature and held it for a shorter amount of time. So think about like melting an ice cube. If I held that ice cube at room temperature, it would take a longer amount of time for it to melt than if I put it on top of the oven at a high temperature on the stovetop. It would take less time to melt. So a lower temperature for a longer time is going to equal a higher temperature for a less time. And that's why the cones actually measure heat work better than the thermocouple in a kiln that has a electronic controller to it. That only measures the temperature. This actually measures the heat work, which is more important to the ceramics because you know, firing to cone 06 means that I'm firing to that maturity level of the clay. I hope that didn't confuse you too much. Okay, so I've got the kiln in the shed today, giving you a view of my whole messy shed. And I'm just putting it on the floor here. I'm going to plug this in, and it is, let's see, it's 10:45 right now. So it'll have longer to fire. I can fire this as long as I want to. We'll see how far it gets today. What I think is kind of interesting though is that this already fired to, I don't know if you can hear that, this already fired to ceramic. It did not fire to 06, but it is definitely no longer clay. Let me see if I can find a smaller piece a thinner piece to demonstrate with. This is one of the ones that had the terrasiglat on it. You can see that kind of waxy shine to it. And can you hear that? It's definitely glassy. So this, if I put it back in water, is not going to dissolve back into clay. So I have no idea what cone it fired to, just that it was lower than 06. So I might not even need to refire these. because that clay definitely matured. If it doesn't fire up to cone 06 this time, what I'll do is I'll do an absorption test, which basically you weigh it. I don't even know if I have a scale at home. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. You weigh it, then you weigh a piece, then you soak that piece in water for 24 hours or so, and then you weigh it again, and then the second time when it's soaked up the water, it's gonna weigh more, obviously. Then you divide the dry mass by the wet mass, and you get the percentage that it increased, and that's the absorption percentage. If it has very high absorption, then the clay is less vitrified, it's less glassy, it's got more pores in it, obviously. If it's been fired more closer to maturity, then it's going to be less percentage of absorption. So if it doesn't fire up to cone 06 this time, then I'm just going to measure the absorption, see if it's an acceptable amount of absorption. If it's like, 20% absorption or something ridiculous like that, then I'm going to say this was a failure and we can't fire to any sort of maturity in this kiln. But if it's less than that, we might be able to make do with just firing it, without the cones, just kind of winging it. So, all right, so I'm going to plug this in, and well, I'll have to show you my dog again, won't I? He's inside right now because it's sprinkling. Oh, he loves lying out in the rain. I don't appreciate it. He never smells like a wet dog, which is a good thing. But still, he likes to lie out in the rain and then come inside and track muddy paw prints all over the house. All right, but anyway. There he is. There he is. Bless you. Oh, big stretch. Okay, see you next time. Guess what? Guess what, guys? Guys, guess what? See, the left cone has a little bit of a bend on it. That means we're approaching cone 06. That's very, very, well, very far from cone 06, but closer than we were yesterday, that's for sure. Jack. Yeah, give us the smolder. There it is. He likes to sleep on the picnic table. Oh, please, no photos. The paparazzi is such a hassle, isn't it, Jack? Bye-bye. Well, it's been almost 8 hours, and let's get this in view. You can see the cone 06 has just barely started to bend. So I'm gonna let it go a couple more hours, I guess. But that might be the hottest we can go. We might only be able to go up to 06. And if that's the case, then I don't have any cones lower than 06. So like I don't have an 07 or an 08 or anything like that. So we might just have to assume that if we fire this as hot as it'll go, that'll be 06. And I'm okay with that. There are some glazes I can do at 06. So one more check-in after this just to see if giving it a couple more hours gets any more heat work out of it. Because remember, it's not just the temperature, but the time that it holds that temperature. So, not bad, I guess. Alright, it's been going for about 9 hours now, and I'm going to call it. I don't think it's going to get any hotter than this. Wow, that's bright. You can see cone 06 is bent. So I'm going to unplug it right now. Now, one thing that I didn't think of before, alright, so that is off. One thing I didn't think of before is that those mini cones are made to use with a kiln sitter. The way a kiln sitter works is you have these 3 little prongs sticking from the outside of the kiln through the wall of the kiln to the inside, and the middle one is on a lever. And you put the cone in between those 3 so that the middle one is resting on top of it. And then when that cone melts, that 3rd one goes down, it bends the cone down, and when that happens, it trips a little hinge on the outside that flips down and shuts it off. It's called a kiln sitter. It's kind of a foolproof way of firing. My other kiln, my bigger kiln, has that. Unfortunately, that's a 240 volt kiln that I don't currently have any place to fire that, other than plugging it in where my dryer is now plugged in, and I don't think that's such a good idea right now. So anyway, the weight of that middle pin on top of the cone bends it before just gravity would bend it. So a cone 06 with a kiln sitter on it will bend at 06. It's formulated to bend with that extra weight on it. So without that weight, it bent at this temperature, but this temperature might actually be higher than 06. That's why I wish I had the normal sized cones, because then I would get an accurate measurement. This is just a very rough estimate because all I had were the mini cones. So I'm going to let that sit overnight. Now, it definitely fired to ceramic temperatures. It fired to ceramic temperatures yesterday when none of the cones bent. But I'm guessing, you know, we probably fired up past cone 06. So maybe up to 05, I'm not exactly sure. But that's earthenware temperature. That's acceptable. So I will definitely be able to make some glazes. Tomorrow I'll try to, my kiln right now, my other kiln is in my basement. I'll try to clear off the junk that's sitting on top of that and maybe show you what the kiln sitter actually looks like. So you can see how one of those works. And then of course the kilns at school have a different system. They have a thermocouple with a like a control box that's computer controlled. So I'm going to let this cool down overnight, lock it up, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. We'll see the outcome tomorrow. Here's Jack once again in his favorite spot, guarding over the picnic table. So with that, good night and see you tomorrow.